Good evening and welcome to Crossroads. The war between Israel and Hamas risks expanding into a broader conflict in the region. Any wrong move right now could set up a chain reaction of international involvement, which could realistically spark a third world war. But the trajectory of all this became clear over the weekend. It appears that, at least for now, there's no international involvement from major players, at least not the way it's heading. But it will likely become a proxy war, with continued support of Israel and with continued Hamas support from proxy forces, notably including Iran. As this takes place, we're likely going to hear mixed narratives. The Biden administration will support Israel with military equipment and supplies, while also calling for the protection of Palestinians, the civilian population. Muslim nations will continue condemning Israel while largely staying out of the conflict and while very likely refusing to accept any, if maybe few, Palestinian refugees. Europe will likely continue calling for peace on both sides while it tries to cool domestic tensions with its Islamist refugees. Terrorist proxy forces are very likely going to continue joining the war against Israel, and Israel will likely continue retaliating against them, notably including across some international borders. China, Russia, and the bloc of socialist nations with them, alongside Iran notably, will likely paint this as an American war. In other words, there's likely going to be a global war of narratives, and for the most part, this will not go beyond public statements and diplomatic condemnations. The reason for this will be a mix of nations using the war to advance their own interests, and a mix of nations trying to cool the fires of the more extreme people, notably within their own borders. At least this is my take. You're going to hear a lot of talk, but most of that will not result in any action. At least this is the trajectory as of right now. Secretary of State Antony Blinken did a rapid international tour the last several days where he met with the heads of state in many key Muslim countries. He made the purpose of these meetings clear.
We came here with 4 key objectives. To make clear that the United States stands with Israel, to prevent the conflict from spreading to other places, to work on securing the release of hostages, including American citizens, and to address the humanitarian crisis that exists in Gaza.
Now, Blinken met with the presidents and the heads of state in Jordan, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and of course Israel. Blinken stated on X that what I've heard from every partner is a shared view to prevent the conflict from spreading, to safeguard innocent lives, and to get assistance to those in Gaza who need it. Now, at the same time, Blinken's meetings in Israel are important. He traveled to Israel both at the beginning and the end of his trip. My personal take on this is that Blinken had to get the message of Israel to the heads of state in Muslim countries, negotiate with those heads of state on these terms, then come back to relay the conditions and the agreements from each nation as the conflict advances. In a series of online posts, notably this afternoon, Blinken said he returned to Israel where he met with the Israeli president and the Israeli prime minister. He said this: "We discussed U.S. support for Israel's right to defend itself and its citizens from Hamas terrorism." He met with the Palestinian Authority president, Mahmoud Abbas, notably as well. And afterwards, Abbas criticized Hamas for its attacks on Israel, stating that the policies of Hamas do not represent the Palestinian people. He also stated that the PLO, which is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which he heads, remains the legitimate authority in the Gaza Strip. Now, this doesn't technically change his position against Hamas, which seized control of Gaza in 2007. But taking all this into account, this is how I see it. It looks like in the Gaza Strip, the agreement is that Hamas is going to be toppled. The PLO under Abbas will likely be restored as the official government. I personally believe this may be the agreement behind the scenes as well, even among powers aligned with Iran, notably. Now remember, Iran is tied to the international bloc of nations tied in with Russia and China. Palestinian Authority President Abbas had met with CCP leader Xi Jinping and signed a strategic agreement with China just a few months ago. And before issuing his recent public statement, Abbas had a call with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Now remember, Venezuela is also tied in with China and Iran. Among the other countries in the region, it appears the general agreement is this: the United States will back the Israeli military as it invades Gaza, although Biden has said he does not support a long-term occupation. This is likely where the agreement with the PLO comes in. The new leaders of the region are already in place. Here's Biden talking about it.
Would you support Israeli occupation of Gaza at this point?
I think it'd be a big mistake. Look, what happened in Gaza, in my view, is Hamas and the extreme elements of Hamas don't represent all the Palestinian people. And I think that it would be a mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza again. But to going in and taking out the extremists, the Hezbollah is up north, but Hamas down south is a necessary requirement.
Now with the Israelis, meanwhile, they're suggesting they will not stop until they wipe Hamas off the map, but that is different from the PLO, of course. Now, as this happens, the U.S. will be involved in a humanitarian mission, notably alongside Egypt, Jordan, Israel, and the United Nations. They're going to be providing food, water, and medicine to Gaza, and the U.S. will coordinate with countries, notably including Egypt, to allow safe passage for civilians looking to escape. It also looks like the system of international relations are largely unchanged. Blinken posted photos of his meetings with top leaders in the United Arab Emirates, including UAE President Mohammed bin Zayed. It looks like the country's peace agreement with Israel, negotiated under the Trump administration, remains in place. Blinken also met with the Crown Prince of Bahrain, which also was a signatory on the Abraham Accords. Now, a question mark still hangs over Saudi Arabia, though. It looks like the Saudis have temporarily put off a normalization deal with Israel, and they're still cozying up with Iran. My personal take on this: the position of Saudi Arabia may not be technically related to the current conflict. Saudi Arabia was already breaking from the U.S.-led order very recently and was actually aligning with the Chinese Communist Party. On March 16th, for example, the CCP brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, countries which have been enemies for a very long time, in order to buy commercial airlines from Boeing. In March, Saudi Arabia signaled to be joining the CCP's Asian Security and Economic Bloc and actually became a dialogue partner in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. On October 9th, as the Hamas terror attack on Israel took place, China and Saudi Arabia held a joint naval operation in the south of China. Now, notably missing from the countries that Blinken visited was Iran. Well, folks, that's it for YouTube. For the rest of the episode, come join us on Epoch TV. We'll be talking about all the craziness in the world right now, including the very large-scale protests we're probably going to watch happen very soon, especially as the ground operations begin between Israel and Hamas. Also, we'll be talking about the new House Speaker vote. Looks like we'll see who gets in, actually, but some information on what's happening with that, and also what the policies might be, where things fall in terms of, let's say, the old school Republicans and the new MAGA party types. Also, we have a lot of other great shows, documentaries, movies, the rest of my episode, all on EpochTV.com. That's EpochTV.com. You also help support this channel and help us keep doing what we're doing. I will see you on Epoch TV. What is the real story of America? Why did the Founding Fathers choose a republic over a democracy? And what would the world be if the bedrock of the American Constitution was lost?